mentions process of manifestation, all these things through through humans and prophecy, right? And and so he goes from that place of prophecy, and then he expands us further, and then says, "Hey, well, this is how the spiritual universe is designed, right?" And the spiritual universe is this expression called this expression called the Ein Sof, right? The endless world, the Ein Sof, right? So the endless world, whatever, it's all these pursuing big super galaxy, even that's beyond our imagination, right? However, shalom, shalom. However, however, there's an aspect of this in this world that's revealed to us, and the aspects that are revealed to us are connected to the world that we live in, right? So the world that we live in is an expression of these particular set of lights that emanate from the endless world, right? So so now he shows us the structure of the lights, of the 10 spheroids, of the worlds, of the various dimensions. He explains to us the parsufim, the whole thing, right? Then he comes and says, there's 22 channels that the spiritual light goes through to become manifest. And these 22 channels are called letters, right? And so he says these 22 channels are 22 dominions of expressions of light from this endless world, right? And these expressions of light, as they become manifest, go through one of these channels, or maybe several of them, or maybe all 22, or whatever, right? Now, those the way that those mechanisms of those letters become manifest in the physical reality is when those letters become what we call words, right? So those 22 channels, maybe three of those channels may come together to express a spiritual or a energy influence from the heavens, right? So this energy influence in the heavens that's not material becomes material through this concept of letters, right? The letters come together to express different aspects of lights that exist in the heavens, right? Those letters that become configurations called words, we call divine names, right? So these divine names are manifesting different attributes of the heavens that need to manifest in this world. Now, this is the part that's where he goes to the super next level, right? Then he says that everything that manifests in this world is a reflection of the spiritual lights. So these spiritual lights that manifest into this world, that make up the design of the world that we live in, is called Torah, right? That is the Torah. The Torah is this accumulation of these divine names that are expression of these letters that represent the channels from the spiritual world to the material world. And the Torah itself is transmitting that. And so he goes very much in depth. And what does he say? He says, hey, so when a person's studying the physical Torah that we have in this world, we're tapping into the DNA of creation, right? Because those words, which are letters, which are divine names, are transmitting actually that is the transmission of this thought consciousness, if we could say such an idea, this thought consciousness from the Ein Sof. This thought consciousness to become make manifest is expressed through this divine name. So even say you say eights, like tree, right? Now we say eights tree, like okay, well, the tree, eights, the whole thing. But what they're saying is that that configuration of letters, right, is expressing a spiritual idea. And the spiritual idea is coming into this world, and it manifests itself in the concept of eights, in the ayin, yeah. becomes expressed in this frame, right? And then from there, it later manifests in the frame of a tree. So when we're reading the Torah, we're reading the context of that manifest as it's structured in the heavens, if we could say. So this is a big deal, you know what I mean? Like this is a really big concept because now like there's so many things come together. Now, when the Midrashim say that there were 7 things created before the world was created, and the first one was the Torah, now it makes sense. Because the Torah itself, we're thinking Moshe Rabbeinu, we're thinking, you know, the Exodus, the base of Migdash, But he's saying like that's the way we're able to understand it at our level, right? But the Torah itself is the expression of what creation is based off of. The letters that form to divine names are the Torah itself. This is an important structure because it's just like, well, we haven't even talked about the creation of the world yet. We haven't talked about, we're going to see in a second the Simpson, right? But we haven't even got there yet, right? The creation of the world is not even in the conversation. That all we're dealing with is all of these lights that need to express itself in the heavens, that need to manifest, that go through these letters, that turn in these divine names, that all together form what we call the Torah. Okay, so any thoughts, reflections on that before we go forward?
Yeah, Baruch Hashem. Yes, it's more so a question. So when we're saying that it's the blueprint, or that it's foundation, or when we say the Torah, um, could we say, are we talking about just the the law, statutes, and commandments? Are we talking about the whole Torah, as far as in, like you said, all of creation? The birth of the Israelite nation, as far as the 12 tribes, um, the first 5 books itself. Um, is that what we're talking? We're talking about the first 5 books, correct? Are we talking about just the Torah that came down, as far as the statutes and commandments?
So yeah, so it's a great point. So what we're seeing here is that every every single word in the Torah is a divine name, right? That's expressing something from the heavens in this world. So every single word in the Torah is a divine transmitting that. Now we at our level are able to understand it in the frame of stories, right? That's why we have the different levels, right? We have Peshat, Drash, Remes, and Sod, right? So we have different levels of how we relate to these divine names, right? Some people are able to see it in the frame of like when there's literal meaning. Some people are able to see it on maybe a more mathematical level. And some people can maybe see it in maybe planetary levels, and then some people can see it on a soul level, right? But the point is saying that the 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 Torah itself, like you could say, like the midrashim, right? The midrashim would be like a subdivision of a sphirot, right? So you, like say you have a sphera of like Tiferet, right? But within Tiferet you have 10, right? So within Tiferet you have Netzach, right? And within that Netzach, that's within Tiferet, there's a 10 within that, right? So there's derivatives of these lights, right? There's derivatives of these lights. So we have the Talmud, we have the Midrashim, we have the Tanakh, right? We have the Halacha, we have the explanation, because all these things are pulling off of these all right? The Torah is an expression
You digitizing, Rabbi. Shalom, Mikey.
Shalom, shalom.
Hey, have you ever noticed that anytime she Rabbi is going into some high level stuff like this here, man, it starts digitizing on us?
Yeah, it happens sometimes. You bring down too much
Wow.
weight.
It's too powerful for these this internet waves.
Yep, too much light. When he comes back though, when he answers your question, I had a follow up to yours. You're making a good point, but maybe think of something myself.
Okay. Yeah, well, I was thinking about it. Just saying, because that means to me that's telling me that um that even our own Torah, our own personal Torah that was given to us in our mother's womb, and then we were touched on the lip, is also a part of that. And so that would you know really uh you know put more emphasis and more urgency to learn more Hebrew, to actually the way we can tap in even more.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I always, when I have conversations with people, I always tell them, like, learning the language is so important because, you lose 80% of translation as it is. So, you're only operating on 20%. And there's so many nuances, there's so many secrets in the holy language that you have to have pretty much, like there's words, there's letters that have different renderings. There's, you might have a letter that has a slash in the middle of it. It's like, what does that mean? Different size letters. Some are large, some are intermediate, some are small. They all have meaning. So for sure.
Let me go back in there. Are you guys?
Yeah, we're here.
All right, sorry about that. All right, God, no, it's like it's. I mean, it's like all. It's like it's technical difficulties, and seriously, ever since this like war happened, I feel like the Wi-Fi in Israel has been weird. I don't know, like even the GPS, everything. Okay, so point is, okay, so where we left off, from what I remember, is this idea of rethinking about what the Torah is, rethinking what the Hebrew letters are, and what the concept of them represents, right? In terms of where our consciousness is. Because, like, a lot of times, we're just sitting there and it's like, we could easily pick up our Siddur and just read, read a Tehillah, read this, and just understand, like, we're literally creating angels. We're connecting to divine lights, right? We're bringing that into this world. We're creating a protection shield around ourselves, our family, the whole world. So it's a big deal to really, connect to this concept, right? Because this is our life. Okay, so let's continue on with Klach Pitchei. Hold on. Yeah, it was wild. The whole thing just like shut down, but it's all good. All righty. All right. Okay, so we're in chapter 24 now. All right, so we're making a lot of ground. Hey, this cipher's definitely been like one of the great adventures so far for the yeshiva. Okay, so so it says Enayin ha Simsun. All right, the Simsun and the line. Okay, period. Okay, the acts of the Simsun. It says Beinayin hamishkit parot chotz mimenu ratzeh. So he says in bringing about creation as the work outside of himself of the Ein Sof, in bringing about creation. Okay, so anyway, so we're going into Simpson. All right, so David, so we got to stay in order because if you remember earlier in the Sefer, he was saying like every single step is so incredibly important because he's building something, right? He's building us to have a clear understanding of the relationship between. We'll see where it ends up. I mean, we're in chapter 24. It's another 100 chapters. Okay, so like I don't know where we're going to be at by then, but the point is just saying that in terms of our spiritual development. But the point is just saying, so now we're dealing with this concept. So he's talking about this idea of in bringing creation as work outside of himself, the Ein Sof, blessed be He, willed it, willfully set aside his limitlessness and adapted a path of limited action. This is called the Simson of the Ein Sof, blessed be He. So that's a big, interesting idea. So he's saying that we'll see it. So it says, Acharei she'da'anu lema she'takala livi behavenat hasfirot. Okay, so he said, having discussed how to understand the sphirot, now we know what we are in. We are in innovation. He says, we must now learn how they develop. Therefore, after he says, we have already heard the viewing of the chariot. There are two factors. Okay, so I guess he's going to bring us back to this frame of prophecy, right? So he's talking about this idea of the chariot, the chariot in Ezekiel. And the Ramchal says that he says, you have already heard the viewing of the chariot. There's two aspects, the vision and the explanation. Seeing and explanation. So now he's using again, that's what I'm saying, you have to look at the mastery of the Sefer. Able to explain, now he's going to explain to us this concept of the Simsum, right? This whole concept of this expression of the physical world. And the way that he's going to bring us into the idea is he's going to bring us back to the concept of the prophet's vision And the vision that he's using is a chariot, which we know is from Ezekiel, maybe there's others. And he's explaining the way we should learn this concept in two frames, seeing and understanding. He says, I will now proceed to explain the vision, since I have already set forth elsewhere the details of what is seen in the vision. Pirkei Chochma B'daf. Okay. He said, you should now be able to understand them. For what follows this explanation of details in order to make things easier, from this point on, I will indicate how the various aspects appear in the vision. It says, it says, he said this proposition has three parts. First part is bringing in about the creation as a work outside of himself. He says it tells us where the subsume took place, to what it applies. Two, the Insof, blessed be he, willfully tells us what the subsume was. And three, and adopts a path of limited action to tell us how the subsume took place. Okay, so we'll see how far we get on this, because these are very specific parts, and what's important again is to internalize where we're at, because now we understand the structure of the universe. We understand how they manifest into physicality. Now this is the beginning of the physicality. This is the beginning of the expression of the Torah, right? When he's speaking of creation, what is this creation based off of? It's based off of these unexpressed lights, right? What are these? How do these unexpressed lights express themselves? Through this aspect of letters, through this aspect of divine names, which all together is called Torah. Now he's explaining the Simsun, which is the creation of the world. The creation of the world is a byproduct of these unrevealed lights, which make manifest in the Torah, that are now becoming physical. See what I'm saying? So creation is Torah. It's not like the creation is a wise book, or the Torah is a wise book with all this great wisdom. It's like, no, the physical, the DNA properties, in the same way that we have a genetic code that allows our DNA to make manifest. That's exactly what the Hebrew letters are, right? The Hebrew letters are like the DNA of creation. Okay, so he says like this. So he says, Beinayin Hamishket Hafalot Lechot Mimenu. Okay, he said to bring about creation as a work outside of himself. He says the Supreme Will is the Ein Sof, blessed be he. He includes different kinds of powers, having no limit or end. Right? So we know that the creator has the supreme will, which is the Ein Sof, one of the wheels of the creator. Like when I say wheels, not circular, I guess you could say that too, but the ratzon, right? The ratzon, the will of Hashem, right? So he says in the supreme will, that is the Ein Sof, blessed be he includes different kinds of powers. He has no limits. This is the Ein Sof. He says, but we are not talking about this aspect of limitlessness. He says, what we have, he says, in which we have no connection. Okay, so he just made a category. He says, the creator can do everything, anything. So we're not even dealing with that space, right? He says, we're not talking about this aspect of limitless. He says, because we never understand it. He says, rather, we're talking about the particular power among his innumerable powers that cause of us. So again, he's taking us back to that original idea. The endless aspect of the Ein Sof, we won't understand all the different components, all the parsufim, everything that exists there. But we can connect to the parsufim, the spheroids that make up the reality that we're in, right? So he's going off of that point. He says the power that causes us is the power to bring out the work outside of himself, in the sense of creating and governing apparently separate independent realms and beings. This is he did in accordance with his quality of goodness, for the nature of goodness is how to bestow goodness to others. If so, we are talking about his acts and words, not about his intrinsic essence. Okay, so again, he's like, if you, I guess perhaps like if you just started reading the Sefer from this point, you could read it from this point and have an understanding, right? Because he's explaining an idea that he refined earlier, but obviously he's saying it in a different way, and he's bringing us to a different context, right? But he's explaining this concept of understanding the divinity of the creator, obviously, and then the divinity of Israel Son, which is the Ein Sof, and the endless aspect of that, right? And then within that now there's another aspect too, which is the aspect of the Ein Sof itself is a form of constriction, right? Like to say that, like, okay, there's an endless world. Okay, the fact that there's a world and it's endless is creating a shape, right? It's creating a design, it's creating a parameter, right? So he's also expressing this idea of saying, like, well, the creator could create anything, so we're not there. But what we're saying is there's a constricted reality that we can conceptualize called the Ein Sof, and within that constricted, limited reality, right? That's for us, right? We can understand the reality of the world that we live in. So let's read it again. So he says, the power to cause us is the power to bring about a work outside of himself. Right. So this is something, again, this is something, I guess you could look at it like, like someone makes a birdhouse, right? They're sitting there and they see these birds and they say, what, I'm going to make a birdhouse. And so they go and take wood, they take all these different elements and they make a birdhouse. So in essence, that person created something outside of themselves. And because it was a byproduct of that person's thinking, it's an extension of that person, right? So that's what he's trying to give us, that conceptual framework to understand something that's beyond our logic, which is the creator, and the creator's Ratzon, which is this endless world, right? That we live in, right? Or that we're an expression of, right? And and seeing that element as being something that once the birdhouse is outside of you, you have a certain affinity to it. You have a certain affection, right? When you walk home, you see it. You have a certain response to the birdhouse, right? So there's this consistent affinity with the creator in us. All right. So it says, "Oh, ni ha mitzitsun afureze ki hine ama asik." So he says, "You guys hear me?"
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so we're learning about this idea of he wants us to relate again. He's bringing us back to the beginning, right? And he's bringing us back to this idea of the world that we live in, and its relationship to man, right? And so he's saying that the world that we live in, the context of which we understand it, is in no way an expression of the totality of the creator, but rather a conceptual mechanism that the Creator reveals to us through wisdom that allows us to understand the relationship between all of us together, right? His infinity, his will, and our existence within it, right? And so that's what we're making that connection in this particular way. Okay, so let's keep going. We just go a little bit because I'm really taking in this stage by stage, right? And we don't want to over. This is not intellectual, right? This is like changing our whole spiritual DNA for ourselves because now we're working off of the structure of the Torah in the heavens, right? Okay, so let's understand this again. This is the truth of this after it's this truth of this affirmed by the Simsun itself. For the Simsun took place only for the sake of the creation. If it had another purpose, it would have a different outcome. Since we see no other outcome of the Simsun except the creation, which it which it is which is true outcome, we may say that the Simsun was for the sake of creation. Further, this act of the Simsun prepared the way for creation to come into being in a way suited for the nature of the created realms and beings, which exist within limits. If so, the Simsum was for the sake of creation. What is the accomplishment? What is okay? So this is think about what he's saying there. What he's saying is that this aspect of creation, right? He said this when you look around you, like right now I'm on a balcony. There's a beautiful breeze in the backdrop, and I'm seeing the trees and all these things, right? All these things. Why is it creation made this way? Why is it compelling us in this way? Right? Why are the things around us made the way that they are? Is it just stom? It's just random, like hey, they just exist, or are all these things created around us to compel us in various ways? And so the Ramchal is saying, so everything from the breeze that's going all the way to the asteroids going in outer space in or the influences from the heavens, all this is expression of the Ein Sof, and it all works in this perfect symmetry, not just for me as a human being, but for the ants, for the ladybugs, for the birds, for the cheetahs, for the lion, right? All these things, right? So it's continuing on. So he's saying, so it must be. So he at this point, the way we're understanding it, Simsun and creation are synonymous, right? Okay, and okay. So if so, the Simsun took place only in which. He says, if so, the Simsun took place only in which that is for the sake of creation, namely in his power to bring about the creation as a work outside of himself. In other words, his limitless power, there is one power, the law that goodness bestows goodness, which is the power to create realms and beings and exist as separate entities outside of him. This is the power that is affected by the Simsun. For initially, this power was limitless, but he contracted it so in order to create a being to live within limits. It's like you take a fish out of the ocean and then you put it in a fish bowl, right? So the fish, it's this vast ocean of water, right? Hundreds of miles of water, right? And you have one fish, but then you take that one fish and then you put that one fish in a fish bowl, its whole entire existence is different, right? It's the center stage. So that's it. That's what he's kind of alluding to by us. So he says, "A nain ze be ma a nara a." So he says, corresponding in the vision, the Simsun appears in one place while all around it is the Ein Sof. In other words, his power to create creatures among all of the other powers appears in one place. All around it are all of the other powers, endless without limits. And his aspect of limitless is removed from one place only, and that is what is subject to contraction. Okay, so again, it's this idea of it's like this kind of like idea in a way. So imagine LeBron James, right? So you got LeBron James, and maybe he's at his peak now. Maybe it was before. I don't know. But you take LeBron James on his best day, right? And you take him to an elementary school, and you go to a first grader, and you go to that first grader, and you say, you know what? You heard of LeBron James? And the kid's like, yeah, yeah. But was a kid like 6'7" or something like this, first grade? He knows who LeBron James is, and LeBron James comes to a school and he plays basketball with this kid. And the way that LeBron James is playing against the kid perceives that he has a chance to win, right? LeBron James humbled himself or shrunk himself to such a level on that court that the kid who's 1 year old perceives that he can beat him in a game. That the kid, his confidence grows second by second. So this is the idea of the creator like reducing itself in a way that we can conceptualize it. Like we can conceptualize this idea of the creator of this reality, and to say this is what the inside. This is what he's trying to say to us. Is like he's giving us this framework to the point, not just intellectually in the text, but the literal design of the universe is based off of this as well, right? Okay, continue on. Let's see where we're at. Okay. All right. So this is 10. Let's continue on. So it says Ve'ish leze vehazot shetia horot aleph she'in hasferod anayin kadesh. Okay. So he says,
Rock, can you share your screen?
oh wow, sorry about that. Thank you. Okay. Alrighty. Okay. So let's go back. Okay. Okay, so again, so just in other words, among his limited power, there is one power. So this idea of like Hashem Echad, right? This is the blueprint of reality, right? And we shouldn't think because we say Hashem Echad that we understand the totality of the Creator, right? We do understand the mechanism of this creation, and we accept the system of creation when we say that. He says, in other words, among the limitless powers, there is one. The law which goodness bestows goodness, right? So this idea of mitzvah brings a mitzvah, sharing brings sharing, positivity brings positivity, negativity brings negativity. Negativity, this is a Shem Echad, right? Because this is the structure, which is the power to create realms and beings that exist in separate entities outside of himself. So there's, I guess, this mechanism of goodness, or this idea of light being able to disseminate itself, is this aspect of like this expression of the Hashem's Ratzon, if we could say that. Because I don't want to use the English words because it could sound kind of weird, the way you're saying it, but that's not, you know what I mean? So you have to be very sensitive about this and just understand that we're talking about Hashem's will right now, right? And how it manifests. He says, so this is the power. So he says, Einayin ze, it says, Beimar ein na'era hamsiun ve'mikom echad. So he says, correspondingly, he says, in the vision, the Simsun appears as one place, while in the Ein Sof, blessed be He, in other words, his power to create creatures among all other powers, among one appears in one place. All around it are all other powers, endless without them. His aspect of limitless is removed from one place only, and this is what is subject to contraction. So this is big. So he's saying, like, if you take the entire reality of all the sphere that is connected to us, it creates this reality, right? This reality is what he's calling the constriction, right? Because there's a whole other set of realities or ratzonim, right, that are surrounding us, that are surrounding this universe, they're surrounding this reality that we live in, but they're not connected to us, right? So even the aspect of us understanding that we live in this particular reality, we still have to have a humility. We have to have a humility to understand that even the understanding of this reality, which is beyond our totality, is just one. It's almost like Hashem created like universes and galaxies with all these planets and stars to remind us of the fact that you can see a planet, which is a whole world, but there's many worlds around it, many planets around it, many galaxies around it, many universes around it. Just one planet. All these things are going around it. But on this planet, like say Earth, right? This is our whole thing. There's nothing else going on but Earth, right? It's a big story, right? Planet Earth. But he's saying even within that and all the galaxies around it is just one of the many expressions that are connected to this endless world. Okay, so let's stop here. Okay, I want to stop here just because these are very sensitive parts, because if we could get to these particular areas and be very clear, we're at what number we're at? We're at number says we're at number 9. Okay, fine. But if we I want to go step by step, right, and be clear. So where we're at now is that he is connecting us to this idea of what is this Ein Sof? What is the Simsun? Why do we have a Simsun? Now we understand that the Simsun, in essence, is a constriction of a particular set of lights that exist in the endless world that make up the reality that we live in. Right? Now, again, you can't lose this thought. All of this is only an expression of the Torah. The entire Simsun right now that you're hearing, this separation of lights of the Ein Sof itself, right? The whole thing is all expressed with the Torah, right? So, any thoughts, ideas before we end it?
No, Baruch Hashem. I'm fine. Torah.
Yeah, yeah.
Baruch Hashem, man, it's, it makes me think like how you can say everything is Gamzu Latova, everything's for the good. Once you hear this breakdown, now you can actually articulate that and understand how everything is for the good. Because the separation is from that place of goodness. So everything that matriculates down is from that starting point. And it kind of goes back to like Hashem is a chad. So no matter what seems to be different paths, they all lead there. It's like a highway. There's different lanes, but it's the one highway. It's going one direction. You can be in lane 1, you can be in lane 7, whatever, but it's all leading to one path. There is no separation. But then there is no connection. It's powerful and strong. That's how down the line. It's like it's amazing to think about. So you really can say everything is Gamzu Latova because we're that separation of Hashem's self in a way that how it was said we could say that was from that place of goodness. And it also makes me think about the Torah style, the higher Torah and the lower Torah in a way. Like I think about the book of Raziel that was taught to Adam Harishon. And I really I was thinking about that in a way of like, that's way before the Torah was given to Moshe Rabbeinu. But Adam Rishon was able to name every single animal. He had all the wisdom from this higher level of Torah. So maybe like the spiritual Torah and the physical Torah in a way, maybe. But Baruch Hashem.
No, no, I like that. I like you always bring you got some you got good stuff, man. You bring out stuff. So a couple points I just want to address it before we finish. So one point that was just brought out was this idea of and this is it's a really important dynamic because it's the supernatural Torah, which the world is designed by, and then we have the Torah in the world that we seek to connect to the supernatural Torah, right? Because that's where all the light is emanating from, right? And so this breakdown component is a really important idea to do that because I mean up until now most of America thinks the Torah is like some ancient book that was like passed down and this was preserved, just the true wisdom of God and the laws of God. No, it's the design of the universe. The Torah is the design of the universe. The sages who are going off of the Torah are articulating aspects of the design of the universe that are not necessarily apparent to the eye. Right? And it's just like that should change a person's tefillah when they're davening, right? And many of these other things, and a lot of things will start coming together. Because right now we're talking about the construction of the physical world, and we're seeing this is the Simpson level. We haven't even gotten to Earth. We haven't gotten to planets. We haven't got anything. We're talking about literally the Simpson, the actual separation of the particular rights of the particular lights or parsufing in the Ein Sof that make up the physical reality that we live in. This is what we're hearing about right now, right? And so, and this is only a response to the supernatural Torah. That's it. Game over. That's it. It's game over. You can't. Nobody. There's no spiritual idea on planet Earth that could compete with just that. And this is what I'm calling. There's other sages. My soul, and all of ours at the yeshiva, we our neshama, we connect to the Ram calls, neshama and his thinking process. But I mean, there's thousands of years about this, on these topics and more intricate ways and different ways of understanding it, right? Because there's different souls that need to understand it in their unique ways. Ram call is a way for us. So, anyways, it's that idea of just you know understanding that the Torah is the physical world. The Torah is the spiritual world. The Torah is everything. Torah is the expression of everything. We are ourselves an expression of the Torah. If we're an expression of Adam Kadmon, we're an expression of the Torah, right? People, okay, this Israelites, okay, for sure. But get to that, focus on that Adam Kadmon level, right? I mean, I get it, you're in a tribe, but not everybody was so holy. Sorry, so let's continue on. I'm on my way actually to Hebron, to Marat and Pelach. So maybe we do something from there, maybe not, but either way, it's time for tshuva.